Thanks for giving me the opportunity to present today. So again, my name is Emma Hauser. I'm the Aquaculture Outreach Specialist for the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point Northern Aquaculture Demonstration Facility. We refer to that as NADF. And my position is also in collaboration with Wisconsin Sea Grants. So today, the last presentation today, again, thanks for sticking around for it, is about record keeping and sort of basic facility maintenance. This is really based on our facility. So it might not be applicable. Everything you hear isn't going to be applicable to your farm, but the idea is to give a really good example, and hopefully you can take things from here. And hopefully in our resources packet, you see that we have a template for all of kind of our BMPs and our kind of checklist that we do here, and hopefully that's usable and useful to you. So before we really get into this, I wanted to highlight the NADF facility. So we are a northern campus of Stevens Point. We're located about 4 hours north of the university up in Bayfield, Wisconsin. And our mission is to really promote public education and advance sustainable aquaculture. And we do that a number of different ways through our research, education, and demonstration. And because we are in a northern climate, we do kind of base our research on northern species, on what makes sense for our northern climate, our markets, and things as well. So as you kind of go through this presentation, I kind of wanted to give a background of the facility, and so you kind of understand, why we might be taking different record keeping for our different projects. One of the unique things about the facility is we do demonstrate different species and systems. So this is a little snapshot of, we have everything from ponds to flow through systems to full recirculating systems. And being able to have those systems as well as our staff expertise allows us to raise a number of different species. So since the facility began operation in 2002, we've raised over 15 different species on site. So a lot of the BMPs that you see here aren't really just for one specific species or system, but we used it for a number of different projects. And again, it depends on the project and the protocols of kind of what we are doing on a daily basis. But again, I'm going through kind of the basis of that. So we have these 15 different species that we raised. Currently, we are focusing on 2 species. For our cold water fish, we've been focusing on Atlantic salmon in recirculating systems, and also walleye as kind of a cool water fish for our research in recirculating systems as well. This is a quick clip of kind of the overview of our inside of our aqua barn, which most of our research and demonstration is happening. So I'm going to play this, and hopefully it's not too choppy. The first system you see here is 6 kind of smaller recirculating systems that are replicated. We're doing some nanobubble oxygenation research in these. As the video pans here, the next system you'll see is a cold water recirculating system. So we have the biofilter there, our sump, our drum filter, and then 6 8-foot recirculating tanks. And you notice a lot of the piping and tanks is insulated to keep that system cold. In the back there, we have some Heath trays that you can't really see. In the corner, we have our feed station. We've got a bell jar incubation system, and then a warm water recirculating system. So in this system here, we're raising walleye. We're looking specifically at walleye broodstock and kind of optimizing spawning techniques for those fish. So you'll see some of the equipment for our research system there, and hopefully that came through okay for everybody. So before we really getting into these specific practices, why do we keep records? These are just some of these main points that I thought of is really, for one, you want to make it specific to your farm. So you want to really optimize it for your farm. That makes it very, relatable, obviously, to what you're doing on a daily basis. And like we've talked about through this kind of whole day today, is you want to be proactive. You want to be able to catch something before it becomes a major issue, because as Dr. Phelps said earlier, you will have issues, you will have fish mortalities. It's part of being a fish farmer. You just want to limit those mortalities, limit those major issues. So, and again, being efficient, optimizing your system, optimizing your feed rates, like Dr. Dong Feng just talked about, and being sustainable. So being economically sustainable, but also on even a focus level of sustaining your equipment, sustaining your pumps in your building. And we always think about fish health and welfare. That's why we're here today. But you really want to also think about your staff. So your staff are there on a daily basis as well too, and you want to be able to make sure that you're doing SOPs and best management practices that are keeping your fish healthy and happy, but also your staff, and you're giving them a good working environment. So I'm going to go through and talk about what we do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And then, of course, you would have to take kind of this template and make it appropriate for your own farm. But for us on a daily basis, whatever system, tank has fish in it, we are taking a very basic water quality parameter. And those basic parameters are temperature, oxygen, and pH. And Lauren gave a great overview of some parameters that they look for those. But we are tracking those and recording those every day, no matter what the project or what we're doing. We're also recording our mortality every day. We're looking if any fish need to be culled. So if there's sick fish in that system, we have to cull those and we'll record those. And then we have our daily cleaning practice. So this can be removing fecal material, removing feed, cleaning the tank walls. Again, it depends on the system of how we do that, but everybody knows what that daily cleaning protocol is. Every day also we are measuring up feed, understanding what that feed rate, that ration is for that system or species. And we're also checking response rates. So as we hand feed, we check response. And if it's different than what we know is normal, we record that, and then we'll check into that kind of more greatly and figure out if there's an issue and what's happening that is making those fish not respond to feed. If there's any kind of system information or updates, so if we change flow rates or if we change something about the system or if we notice something positive or negative, that's something that's recorded every day. And I'm not talking a lot about our biosecurity necessarily in this talk. Myron Kebis gave a great overview of biosecurity checklist, but on a daily basis, we are checking kind of our disinfection protocols. So we use Virkon disinfectant, and we want to make sure that the mats that we use for disinfecting our shoes have fresh Virkon on them, that our probes are getting disinfected daily, our equipment's getting disinfected daily after use, things like in that nature. More on a weekly basis, we do a full water quality parameter check for our RAS systems. And again, it really depends on if we're just starting up our RAS, we might check this more frequently, but generally we check it weekly if our operation has been mature, our system has been mature, and we feel pretty comfortable with it. It's on a weekly basis, and we will go through those parameters in a little bit. And then we have a fish sampling protocol. And again, depending on the project, but we always want to check our fish every few weeks. Depending on their age, we want to check how they're growing, what they look like. At a minimum, we're checking lengths and weights. We might check things like fin quality, but if we notice anything different about the fish, we will record that as well too. And that includes any deformities that we notice. And for smaller fish, this might happen more often. So especially when we're doing a species like walleye, when they're young, that growth is pretty exponential when they're young. So we might be tracking them a little more closely just to make sure we're matching those feed rates appropriately. And then part of that is reviewing our feed rates, our ratios, and our bioplan. So every time we are doing a sample and we're recording that, we get our average lengths and weights, and we will put that into our Excel file and check our specific growth rates and really check on those fish and see how they're doing. Moving on to more of a weekly recording system. Again, we're kind of checking our disinfectant, but we are freshening that up. So our Virkon, when we make a batch of Virkon or a disinfectant, we change that on a weekly basis to make sure that it's still being efficient as a disinfectant. And that includes using it for our mats and also our probes. We would want to calibrate probes that need calibrating in a weekly basis. Some probes need more frequent calibration, such as our pH probes. So you'd really want to know the equipment that you're using and what the manufacturer is kind of recommending for that. We want to check on our flow rates. We either are checking on them, like verifying them of what flow is going into each system or tank, or we want to update those. So as our fish are growing and we want to update flow rates, we'll do that kind of on a weekly basis. Weekly, we do more of a major system clean. So if we need to clean sumps or kind of remove from some biofloc from the top of our sand filters, drum filter power washing is important. I have spoken to a farm not too long ago that has never washed their drum filter and had some major issues with hydraulic and fluid rates and things, and because that was getting gummed up. So it's really important that, again, you understand your equipment and you have kind of a cleaning protocol or reporting protocol for that different equipment. And we'll also change out our pump screens on a weekly basis as well. For backup tests, so whether you have a generator or a solenoid valve or a way to handle a situation where you would lose power or you'd need a backup capability, you want to be able to test that weekly. So some facilities might test this on Friday, knowing that you'll have lower staff on the weekend, or in case of an emergency on the weekend, we like to test it a little earlier in the week, just in case we need to replace a part or fix something. We have a week to do that before the weekend. So again, depends on your own protocols. And you also want to check that alarm response and make sure that everybody's on the same page with who's going to be on call, and review that with your staff. That's something that's really important to make sure if the person is on call, they know that they're the point of contact. Moving on to a monthly basis. So we want to be sure, this is mainly, talking about our RAS systems, but we want to be able to exercise and cycle our pumps and valves, making sure that they're operating correctly, giving them that kind of exercise. We want to inventory our feed. So like Dr. Dong Feng just talked about, making sure that your feed isn't expired, that it's not moldy, that you're using, make sure you're using your older feed before your newest feed. And if you need to order feed, a lot of feed companies are pretty far out to order feed, especially if you want something specific. So make sure you have that in your checklist. Monthly, we will review kind of our overall bio plan and get on the same page with, when are we going to be moving fish? Are we splitting densities? Are we moving them to a different system or a tank? We'll recheck feed conversion rates, making sure that our fish are, consuming feed optimally and growing optimally. We have a liquid oxygen tank on site, which is in the picture there. The company we go through is Praxair, and so they're in Duluth, and we have to give them a monthly recording of what level of oxygen we have in that tank. So again, we're being proactive to make sure that we know what our levels are so that we know when to order that. We'll also inventory our spare parts list. So again, that's kind of based on your alarm response. If there's a part that you need, you want to make sure that it's on hand. And now moving more to an annual basis here. So again, every facility is going to be different when it comes to maintenance, but of course, seasonally, we have very strong seasons up here. So every season, we're kind of checking the facility and maintaining it for the next season to come, especially in the fall time. We're preparing everything for the winter. That's, it's good to do that on a seasonal basis. Fish health inspection. So we are a research and demonstration facility. So we have fish coming in and leaving the facility. We really want to make sure that we get a fish health inspection annually. And that's regardless of how the fish are doing. We get that annually no matter what. If we have an issue, we might have a vet in besides that annual inspection. And then if we have a license renewal permitting process that has to happen annually, we do that as well. This would also be the time when we need to do a major system clean or disinfection. So our recirculating system, once a project is done, we will be sure, take all the fish out of that system. We will disinfect it. And we have a great protocol on our resources page about how we do that. But some facilities might not do this. They just have, fish coming in at all times and are not disinfecting the whole system. So again, based on your protocols. And then our generator or your backup service should be have a full inspection annually. This just happened on Monday for us. So this is a nice updated picture of our generator being serviced. So that's a full inspection, an oil change, making sure that that's up to par for us. And then replacing major parts, especially like in our research system, our UV lights, they last us about 1,200 hours. We know that. We have it on our checklist to replace those after a certain amount of time. So how to record. So this is an example of kind of what works the best for us, what's easy, what our staff will do. You always want to, you want to be convenient, you want to make it simple, and you want to make it useful. So it doesn't matter how much you're recording, but if you never look at it again or have a nice place to put it, it's not being very usable to you. So we have something called our daily data books. And those are, we have a book for each system or each project. And it's a simple way to make sure you are checking everything on a daily basis, like we talked about. So our temperature, oxygen, pH, the feed going to the fish, the pH, the mortalities, and any kind of system info. So here we record our sodium bicarbonate in our RAS system that we add. So that is our buffer. And then this page is showing more of a fuller scale water quality test that we did that week. So you can record it there as well too. And we have a nice kind of storage for these right in the Aqua lab. So they grab them, staff grabs it each day and records what is needed to be done each day in each system. We then take the data in those notebooks and we can put them in Excel files so that we can quickly check on average feeds that we're using over time, and we can have that all in an Excel spreadsheet, just like we would our lengths and weights from our fish, and figure out averages. So it's really good to have digital backup and then use Excel for kind of figuring out those calculations for you and looking at your bio plans. Another easy way we can kind of help us remember or record things is using tank tags. And one easy way of doing that is using duct tape, and we put it right on the tank to kind of put down our total fish numbers, our total body weights at that time, kind of the date that was done. And it's just a nice memory of what we have in the tank, how many fish. And then every time those fish are sampled, we can update that. And we might also have more of a project sheet or form on each tank too that the staff can look at to remember if we're doing a photo period manipulation on the fish, or if we are doing some sort of different cleaning schedule, or if there's something tied to that tank that people need to remember, we have it there as well. Another way is using whiteboards. So this is our feed station in the Aqua Lab. So this is where we weigh up and measure feed each day. We do have a walk-in cooler in our tractor shed, which most of our feed is held. This is feed that we use kind of on a general daily basis. And the whiteboard, just to give you a closer look at that, has each tank in the Aqua Barn. It talks about fish numbers. It talks about body weights. It talks about what feed and how much is being fed to each tank. So if one staff was gone for a few days and we changed feed ratios, they'd be able to look at this and make sure, the last time it was updated, and make sure they know what's going on in each tank and each system. This is another example of just an easy way. It's just a clipboard. This is our oxygen reading. So again, kind of in our checklist and our resources that we gave you, taking an oxygen reading every month, it's checked that yes, we need to do it, but we also need another document to say, okay, this was the reading, this is the date it was took, and any notes that goes along with that. So just briefly, in your resources packet that you should have got for this date, or we'll get it the next day, is kind of a list of things. I'm just going to go through those really quick of what we added to that. So regardless of everything I just talked about, it's really nice to have just a basic daily SOP, daily routine for your staff that come in and out of your building. So this is applicable to us regardless of the day, the month, the project. You want to make sure all your staff know the basic protocols of when they come into the facility, what is needed to be done. And for us, you come in, you turn on the lights, and you are listening and checking for any issues. So you're looking in the tanks, you're walking around, you're doing a check. Before you start cleaning, before you start feeding, you're doing a check over of everything. And that's the same thing that happens in the evening as well too. So it's really important to us that if we make any changes to the system, flow rate changes or fish movements or anything, that we do it early on in the day, so that if something did happen, we would check that issue before leaving at the end of the day, and can see if there's an issue with oxygen or a flow rate or something like that before we leave. So usually a lot of our issues that have happened is because of human error. So a valve gets left open, or somebody moves fish and forgets to check oxygen, something like that. We can check that before we leave during the end of the day, and hopefully can catch that issue before we head out. So we gave you a template of, again, our daily record keeping every day. We talked about that. And then these are just basics, kind of checklists of what we check off on a weekly basis to make sure we're doing them, and a monthly and annual basis. So again, they're just templates. They're just for you to kind of look over and apply what would make sense to you and your farm. So Lauren gave a great overview of water chemistry and water quality. These are our parameters that we try to hold true for our recirculating systems for cold water and warm water species. So cold water, I'm talking about the salmonids. Warm water, or cool water we call them, I'm talking about our walleye and yellow perch, so at about 70 to 75 degrees. So we really want to maintain these water quality parameters in our RAS system. So when I'm talking about our full scale water quality checks weekly, this is sort of what we are looking at. And those should be in your resources. So a few takeaways from this, and I hope that, I left some time for questions here, but I want to be able to kind of portray that this has to be specific to your farm, right? These are examples. Make sure that it's specific and usable for your own farm. And again, we're being proactive here. So you might say, well, I've never had an issue with oxygen. I don't need to check it. I never check it. Like we said, if there is an issue down the road, if you never check it, it's really hard to be proactive to say this might have been the issue or the cause of the issue if you do have one down the road. And again, there will always be issues that come up with fish health. So again, think simplicity, but be effective about it. And again, you're considering fish health, but also staff health and welfare at your facility. I just want to end with this resource again, too. So Myron Kebis talked about this online fish health program, and he was the original creator of this, along with our director, Chris Hartlib. There is a QR code that'll take you right to a quick survey before you take this, but it's a really great resource. And if you were to take this online class, as a vet or as a student, it would be about $350, and we are offering it for free. So please take advantage of that. Another great resource is the Great Lakes Aquaculture Collaborative that you all should know about. They have a wonderful webpage with a lot of webinars and resources that Elliot talked about beforehand. The NADF facility is open to the public, so please come and tour us. We do virtual tours as well, too, so you're welcome to reach out to me. And we have a lot of resources that we put out on our social networking sites, so please follow us. We have a lot of videos going up on our YouTube channel that are applicable to fish health, but also a lot of our projects and some great resources coming down the line. So with that, I'll say thank you, and hopefully we have a few minutes for questions.